So if you don't know, I'm Dallas Smith. I'm your current president for this year. And as Andy Gertner would say, yes, and I am black. In case, and he said he didn't want to sit next to a black guy. That's why he's on the other end. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of that tonight. So anyway. No, we couldn't afford to have all these guys in the same room at the same time. If we just had to take their hourly rate, we'd have to mortgage this building. But fortunately enough, thank God for friendship, right? And so I'm not going to introduce them. Maybe I will. I will introduce you. That's what I will do. I will introduce you based on the way that I see you. And then...
All right, moving right to John O'Neill. And
so I'm gonna start here with my man, Sam Holmes. Sam Holmes, you correct me. If any of this is wrong, you correct me and say, no, Dallas is not true. No. The name is right. Is it Sam? Okay, this is Sam Holmes. The funny thing is we all actually used to work together at Cushman & Wakefield all at the exact same time. So Sam was, I would say, was a protege of the guy on the end, Andy Gertner, who y'all heard me call. Andy Gertner is the king, the godfather tenant rep. That's the guy on the end, okay?
I agree.
Everybody up here had something that he's poured into us. So this is Sam. Sam's made more money than God. In fact, I mean, he probably owes you money now, probably. Sam and his partner, John Schlesinger, I knew we couldn't afford. We'd have to sell 2 buildings if we mortgaged 2 buildings. We got John here too, so just let him know. We'll get him next time by himself.
And there's nowhere in hell anybody would listen to him 3 hours.
But this is Sam Holmes. He's now with CBRE chairman, vice chairman?
Vice chair.
Vice chairman. Anything you want to add to that introduction?
Yeah.
You like that?
That's perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
All right. Bulldog. Big Bulldog fan. The next one is O'Neill, who I would call, he's my branch Ricky for the Atlanta Commercial Board. A lot of you don't know this, but the first black board member, it was me at 2014 in Atlanta, Georgia, on this board. That happened because of that guy right there, John O'Neill. I like to call him Branch Ricky, John O'Neill. So he's part of the Branch Ricky Club. Love this guy very much. He's now doing something he has absolutely no idea what the hell he's doing. He's running the apartment, something like that, for Cushman & Wakefield now, right?
Correct.
He's the president of it, or something like that. Is that right?
Have you done your homework?
Yeah, something like that.
Really prepped for this.
Yeah, I looked at it this morning. I looked at your LinkedIn post. That was it. But I think they're prepping him for something much bigger than just what he's doing now. So a lot's going to be coming from this guy. John O'Neill, anything you want to add to that?
No, sir.
He's also a past president, 2014.
Actually.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Press
Go ahead and do Andy, then I'll come back to you.
Andy Gertner, the godfather of tenant representation. He got into tenant rep. It was Jesus, Moses, and then Andy. Andy's the very first one to ever have a real estate license in the world. No, I know I'm going to pay for this, so I'm getting it out now. I know it's coming, so I'm just getting it out now.
Got a mic, too.
Yeah, it's a mic, too. Push the button. When it turns green, you can talk. But no, Andy, I talk about him in my book, and the one thing I'd say about him was he was the guy that always gave me hope when I was at Cushman & Wakefield. He was the first guy I called when I started my firm, say, Andy, I'm going to start my own firm. He said, what took you so long? And I said, would you play part? He's been part of our brain trust since we started the firm. He's part of my kitchen cabinet. When we first started, it was just me, Leonte, and Kelly. Andy spent 4 hours with us mapping out strategy for T. Dallas Smith & Company. And this is in 2006, 2007. So I will forever love this man. So, and I just want all of us just to stop and just give Andy a standing ovation right now for being who he is. Andy, anything you want to add to that?
Well, I don't think I'm close to dying, but thank you for that. I have a lot to say as the day goes on.
Well, I'm sure. Well, man. So we're here. This is part of what we're calling the Visionary Series. I want you to kind of imagine, I got into business when I was 19 in 1982. And what I wanted to do was to curate a panel that my 19-year-old self would be sitting on the front row like you are. And I'd be able to ask some icons in the industry any question that I wanted to ask. And so I want to make sure that we make this a dialogue today, that I won't just be having all the questions, all the answers. They'll have the answers. I won't have all the questions. But if there's some things that you want to hear, I'm just trying to tell you, if you understood who was sitting at this panel today's your time to ask that question. I mean, like, for real, today's that time. So I'm going to start off with a very softball question. Easy. Can I interrupt? If you must.
So, sorry, Dallas.
Well, this is how it will go the rest of the day.
Yeah. So I do. So many of you. Well, thank you for doing this, Dallas. First of all, and a lot of you took advantage of giving your feedback for this session early and went ahead and filled out a survey before it even started, which we certainly appreciate. And so Robin went ahead and gave me some of the feedback that you guys had written, and so I'll just read some of this now. Somebody should be paying us to sit through this bullshit. That was who was that one? That was, thank you. 100% chance I'm not here at 4:00. That was kind of mean. I think this was Tyler. I was told there would be ice cream. So I don't know. And then next time, happy hour first. So anyway, thank you so much for putting that together. Sorry to throw you off here.
No, that was needed. We needed to hear that. So I'm going to get back to a serious question.
Okay, sorry.
So we're all in the brokerage business, and we started, for the most part, everybody straight commission. Is that a fair statement? So what is the message for people who are coming through the same journey right now, but they're not at this stage in their trajectory in the business, about getting started, and was it worth it? Let's start with you, Sam.
But I wasn't on straight commission. I was very fortunate. I got a really big $14,000 draw that I had to pay back. That was really helpful. I do think that's a flawed model. I mean, I think there's no question. I think that's one of the barriers to our industry that the industry needs to be better at. I think most companies are trying to figure it out. You're not going to get the best of brightest throughout the sectors of colleges and high schools if you're a business that has a barrier where some do not have my parents gave me $500 a month for a year. That was a blessing. I was forever grateful for that, but not everybody has that support that I was lucky enough to have. So I think that fortunately the model's changing, I think, which is allowing better and a more diverse group of candidates coming into our industry. But yeah, looking back on it, sure, it was worth it. I mean, it was tough. It was hard, but I worked for the best guy ever in our industry at the end of this table. So, and the best guy that ever managed in our industry down there. So it was a blessing for me. I just got really lucky to have a great spot to start my career. But the commission only part is a definite challenge, and I'm proud of our industry for moving past that in a lot of areas to, again, allow better people in our industry.
Oh, man, I love it. Now, I have to stop because Dick Bowers just walked in the room. Now, if I knew we could get Dick Bowers, I would have added another chair up here.
So what you know, I told Billy Charlie, I don't need that. We had those things.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Mr. Bowers, if you keep working at it, I think you're going to make it in this business. I think you're going to be okay. Thank you, Sam.
Oh, my pleasure.
John, what do you think about that?
Question is,
The question, you started off straight commission or a very tiny draw. Talk about the lean years, because I just want to hear about the lean years. This is a 19-year-old Dallas asking the question, who's trying to put two nickels together to make a dime. So
Yeah, I remember moving back from D.C. And then having that transition back into my folks' place, which is always a humbling move, and working at a firm that's still here in the Atlanta market today, La Vista Associates, and interviewed there several times and had a great mentor by the name of Tom Davenport. And this was in 1993, heading into 94. We'd gone through a steep downturn. The markets were beginning to come back a little bit. And all I could offer Tom Davenport was, work ethic. I brought no knowledge to the table, but I was prepared to work, and we hit it off. And I actually had lunch with him at the end of last year, and I thanked him because I don't think as I've matured in this business and talked to other people looking to get in the industry, I didn't realize how generous he was, not only with his time, but he brought me in as a 50-50 partner. Again, when all I could do is really go out there and try to, dig things up and create leverage for him. And I look back on that now, and you just don't, those who have been in the business for a while, you don't see folks offering juniors anywhere near that percentage. And so he was incredibly, oh, that's great, Mike. That's really great. I was on the verge of crying right there. But so I came in 100% commission, but so much is having people that invest in you. And so Tom, at that point in my career, gave me great opportunities, which I'll be forever grateful for.
But you did spend some time at your parents' house.
I did. Thank you.
Part of the journey. I mean, I did it as a married couple.
You're still
A couple of times.
Yeah.
I just moved out. So anyway, Andy, talk about the early years, the lean years.
I have a few stories. So networking's a big part of our business. And I went to high school with a guy named Hazen Hadley Stevens, Chip Stevens. And Chip Stevens was at Adair Realty Company. Adair Realty Company was a precursor to all the national companies that are in town. It was Adair, Adams Cates, Sharp Boylston. I was working for an apartment developer as kind of a jack of all trades. It was a family friend. I think I was making $18,000 a year. And Chip said he at that time was running brokerage at Adair. Adair was a white shoe, silk stocking firm. Jack Adair was on the board of trust company. They certainly weren't any Jews at that place, I being Jewish. And Chip said, come on over here. It's an opportunity. I think I took a $6,000 cut in income on a draw. But just like John with Davenport, Chip started taking me to meetings right away. And out of that grew the famous Andy Gertner cold calling method.
Which is
An Andy Gertner cold call is when my phone rings and I don't know who it is. Unlike my friend Mr. Bowers over there,
Who's still cold call?
still cold call. No, it's cold call. I would also say talk about the lean years at Trust Company. There was a banker named Jack Hartman. Jack Hartman was in charge of commercial real estate lending, notwithstanding the fact that he banked John Coppage and myself, among others. He was made president of Trust Company in Sea Island, Brunswick. But I lived on 90-day notes for probably 5 years. And I would tell Jack, I have no idea when I'm going to pay you back. But just hang in there. You'll get paid. And his nickname among those of us who banked with him was Easy Money Hartman. I still call him Easy Money today. But
Don't make it like that anymore.
you just persevered.
Yeah.
That's it.
Andy, talk about your very first commission check.
Is that a story I'm supposed to remember?
You don't remember that? All right.
It may have been.
How about let's talk about the last one you remember? Let's talk about the last one you remember. Can you talk about that one?
I mean, there have been some great checks, and there have been some.
Well, let me tell you my very first one. I only made $300 on my very first one. It was a taxi cab company. Now, you'd have thought I made $3 million. It wasn't. It was 3 months, and then I made $300. It was, for me, the fact that I was able to do this out of nothing, which was the big aha kind of moment for me. And so, Sam, you remember your very first one?
I do.
Talk about it.
812 feet for bulk aggregate supply. That and the guy who runs it's still a great buddy of mine today. He's in the rock business for golf courses and resorts. And at Cumberland Office Park, 3-year deal.
How much did you make?
I do not remember. But I'm sure I can go here.
812 square feet.
It was certainly 3 digits. I can assure you. Yeah.
Hit 3 nights.
It was, like you said, it was unbelievably rewarding because it was one that you took from start to finish and did it on your own. It was pretty cool. So obviously we'll never forget that. It was pretty meaningful.
Absolutely. John O'Neill, do you remember your very first one? Have you had a deal yet?
yeah. It's we're still waiting on it.
Keep hanging in there.
Wait,
I think it was at. Excuse me. I get choked up when I talk about the first deal. I think it was in. I think it was in Peachtree Corners. I do remember it was similar, sub 1,000 square feet. So it's kind of, we're talking big money, and I remember walking through the back in those days when you did tour books, you had to pull out. You actually put the stops.
had to rub the dot on.
It's then if you didn't know Peachtree Corners Market like I did not, and then the dots were all over the place. I remember the first tour that was I was nervous, and you got clients in the car who probably really didn't have any confidence in me either. And so we're driving around. I'm getting lost. We're going in decks. I can't. But I do remember we got the deal done, and then they sued me. It's
Are you serious?
no,
No.
but it's no.
I could see that happening with you. That's why I asked the question. But I was remiss to mention that Mike Elding is sitting here too. Mike Elding, raise your hand. Mike is the guy who hired me when I was at Cushman Wakefield in 1989. And Mike used to run the Cushman Wakefield office, of which O'Neill ended up taking later. And then who runs it now? Tyler. Tyler, raise your hand. So for all the new brokers, the mentees that we have in trying to get a job, go find that guy. Yeah. You guys bug the hell out of him until you get a job. I mean, but no.
Let me touch on
Yes.
a couple of things.
He remembered his last first deal.
Turn to me. So, first of all, I'm responsible for getting Sam Holmes in commercial real estate. God help me. God. Sam's father, John Paul Holmes, one of my old friends. In fact, many of you don't know this, but I was a letterman on the University of Georgia football team. I know the physique probably throws y'all off a little bit, but I was a manager, and for I was actually the head manager on Vince Dooley's first football team. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
I picked up Sam's father's yacht for 4 years. That's what managers do. It's what managers do. John Paul called me one day and said, I'm in town from Monticello. Sam's thinking about taking a job in the training program at the Trust Company of Georgia. And we'd like to go to lunch with you. They took me to Commerce Club. And, I mean, here was a guy, he'd been president of the Interfraternity Council up at Georgia, for those of you in the Greek system. It's a big deal, particularly in Athens. I knew he had gift to gab, he's full of shit. And I said it'd be a waste. It'd be an absolute waste. And they were hemming and hawing. And at that point, Schlesinger was working with me. And back then, one of the hot drinking spots was the old Seven Steers in Buckhead. And Schlesinger and I took Holmes and hotboxed him with copious alcohol. And he ended up coming to work there. And just to show you his gratitude, just as we had trained him up to start to make some money, damn if he and Schlesinger didn't jump ship on him and left my ass at Cushman and Wakefield. Anyway.
Tell me how you really
Every
feel.
bit of that story is true, except Andy leaves out. We were actually celebrating the settlement of Andy's divorce that night. That's why we were really drinking a lot of alcohol.
I hope y'all were buying.
Which divorce was that?
One.
No, just one. Okay. This is all Cushman and Wakefield, ladies and gentlemen. So, Andy, anything else? Because I don't want
No,
you're on a roll. I
keep
like
going.
that. Okay.
Well, they're more.
We got 4 more hours.
We may start drinking in 15 minutes. So I'm going to ask a question to come from the audience, particularly from Mike Elting. Mike, out of these guys that you had to manage, not me included, but these guys that you had to manage, who was the worst?
And then, you know, we got it. Wait now. That's gratitude. You see, that question about what the first check was, commission check. I'm 80 years old. I have no clue what that was. But you got Mike Elting over here casting aspersions. He came Cushman and Wakefield. He was a trust officer at CNS Bank, and he begged me to get him out of that bank. and to show you what kind of broker Mike was, it wasn't too long before he got full-time into management. Got him a salary.
No, it still one of the hardest.
John, what lessons did you learn from Mike, if any?
Next question. Oh, a ton. I mean, I and I mean that sincerely. So it's interesting. You know, I talked about it, kind of a mentor, my first professional chapter at La Vista. And then the second chapter I had was at Insignia ESG, which when Andy was referencing that Sam and his partner John Schlesinger left Cushman, they went and started for really the Southeast, a New York-based group that was expanding called Insignia ESG. And
Big Truden, right?
And we're going to school.
Yep. And so I had an opportunity after about 3 years at La Vista to then go join John and Sam, and actually had the privilege of being their first hire.
Sure.
And spent almost 7 years with those guys, and we had an amazing run. I learned an absolute ton from Sam and John and others there, and I do remember getting in. I'm an early riser. I remember getting in early, and I could never beat him. Like I would get in at like 5:30, and he was already hammering it out. And I thought, what time do you sleep here? What is going on? But it was, but learned so much about real estate, about work ethic, and things of that nature. Then Insignia was sold, and that was an interesting time in the market because it was, the thesis of that investment was. Insignia had a very strong New York presence and a very strong presence in London. And those were two areas where CBRE was not very strong. And so they spent a lot of time trying to stabilize the business in New York and overseas. And it's not that they weren't paying attention to other markets, important markets like Atlanta, but they weren't paying as much attention. So you just had a lot of like type A's wandering around saying, I wonder what's next. And so we all, if you had a tie on that day, it was like, who are you talking to? Well, I'm talking to Stallback today, and I'm talking to, that type of thing. And I remember going over and having a conversation with Mike and coming back. And I remember talking to I was sitting in parking deck. I remember talking to my father, giving him a recap of that meeting with Mike. And I remember just the impact that he had in a short conversation. Well, short, about an hour, kind of just back and forth, but very little about necessarily the business. It was really around just me as a person and just our family and values and just and I just remember being very impressed with that. And so one of the hardest things was leaving people that were so dominant in the business with John and Sam and others. But I'd kind of grown up under his purview, and I wanted to see if I could go kind of get out of that shadow and see if I could try to build something on my own, which was a total train wreck. No, I'm kidding.
Why you're
Exactly. But it was, but that was hard. But then going to Cushman and having Mike as the leader was a great chapter. So, thank you, Mike.
So you bring up the fact about the work ethic, coming in extremely early, that kind of thing. Sam, talk about some of the things that you do now, still as a sort of carryover that's never changed, that continues to be one of the.
Well, one of my partners,
outrageous sport play.
one of my partners, Jennifer Childers, is out there. She can tell you, I don't get it at 5:30 anymore, but no, I did for a long time. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I mean, there's just nothing that can replicate work ethic. I mean, it is the single most important thing about what any of us do in our industry and any industry. You know, I was blessed to, when I started, there was a culture from Andy, from Mike in our office that we all worked really, really hard. And so that was ingrained. I was fortunate to grow up with a father that worked very hard and a mother that worked really hard. And so I kind of learned some of those old school lessons of work ethic that have been, I think, pretty important in our career. But, John's comments are very flattering. There was no secret when we hired John. I mean, John was a rock star in the making. Everybody knew that. It was a pleasure to see him grow, and it's very fun to watch his success since then. But, the vast majority of what little success I've had is again, it's because of I got a chance to work with the best guy in our industry. You called him the king in our industry, and he is. And to still be the best guy in our industry at 80 years old is phenomenal to me. I mean, it truly is. He taught us so much, and I say us. I have a business partner for 35 years, which is longer than most marriages. And we learned so much from Andy. Andy is someone who taught us that you cannot provide enough service to clients. I mean, he has a meticulous detail of providing more than less, regardless of what compensation you get. The most important thing that we as brokers do is advocate for our clients. And some of the best deals that our clients do is not doing a deal. And you don't provide that advocacy unless you love what you do and you have confidence in what you do. But you certainly are here to give clients your best interest, their best interest at heart, regardless of what your compensation is. And so I learned that from Andy. It's a long game. Yeah, you might be disappointed, but if you do the right thing for your clients, you're going to be rewarded numerous times over the years. The proudest I am of, we've got clients that have been with us for 30 years, and it's because they know we're giving them the counsel that's in their best interest. And I learned that directly from Andy. At the time, I really do have empathy for you younger people. I have a 31-year-old nephew that works with us. The business that y'all are in today is so much more competitive than it was when I started. I mean, not even close. There are so many good brokers in this city. I mean, so many. The competition's insane. When I was starting, in all candor, I know you're going to laugh at this, the biggest competition that we had when I started was clients doing the deal themselves. If you weren't able to sit in front of somebody and explain to them that you do this for this is your job, you do it every 10 years, and you can't convince them that you can do it better than them, then you damn sure should be in another industry. So it was just about getting out there and trying to see as many people as you possibly could. I've got a great empathy again for you guys today, because you still have guys like Andy still in the business, and you still got phenomenal young people that are really, really talented, including John. I mean, some of the proudest that I am, if we've had people that work for us that have gone on to be studs in this business. I mean, David Moline worked for us when we first started. Scott Taylor worked for us when we first started. Glenn Colker worked with us when we first started. I now work with the best middle-aged broker in our business. Ellen Stern is the absolute top professional that I've been around. And so I have now finally been able to learn a little bit to help some people that are younger, like Andy and Mike and others. I was so blessed to learn from them. So it's a relationship world, and thankfully I was very fortunate to be in the right place at the right time.
You talked about two things. One, tenant rep in itself was a new thing. Tenants were doing their own deals. I'm gonna go back to the Godfather tenant rep down here. Talk about that transition of getting clients to really understand they need somebody to represent their interests as well. What was that like?
It was evolutionary. But let me back up for a second. And on the working hard part, oftentimes I've spoken to young brokers or sessions here at the board, and somebody said, well, what do you need to be a success in this business? And I say, well, it helps if you're smart. There are plenty of dumb people in this business.
No one in this room.
Certainly not. It helps if you work hard. I'm a morning person. 5:30, kind of my time. And of late, I'm still getting up, working from home. But if I come in at 7:30, O'Neill's car's there. So he's coming to the office. The third thing is you need to be lucky. And sure enough, I've been awfully lucky in so many different levels. And I don't belittle that. They're just the people I've associated with. Having a loudmouth New Yorker show up in 1976 and say, come join Cushman & Wakefield. John Dowling was legendary as a tenant broker in New York. He's dead now. But somebody said, I was going to say, I made a comment on a video that I had to do that I said Dowling was down there shoveling coal right now. And I sent it to his 3 children and his wife. And they said, you're right.
Anyway, you got to argue with that.
But, you know, those are platitudes, those words. I mean, I'm not, well, I was going to say I'm not book smart. I am book smart. I read voraciously. But I'm not great with numbers. But I was smart enough to know that I could get somebody to run those numbers. Now, I understand the concepts. I don't own an HP 12C, never have.
Can you tell people what that is? Most of the people in this audience have no clue. HP 12C, they have no idea what this is.
Again, this is not the Andy show. They'll stop me here. When I started, well, there was no electricity.
We established that earlier. Yeah.
No, when I started, if you were going to run numbers, we used 55-column green ledger paper. And instead of a calculator that had all the periodic tables built into them, there was a book. It's a big, thick book. We called it by its publisher's name. The life of me, I can't remember. You remember the name of that book?
You did go to Georgia.
Well, that's where they told me to take my shoes off and count my toes too. But and of course, while you were running those numbers laboriously, you find a mistake. You didn't hit delete, or you got the eraser out, then you had to run the thing again. And, you know, we have it so great today compared to the way it was. I mean, we used to go send a junior person like Sam Holmes down the street to the stockbroker's office to get a copy of a 10K of a company to find out who was on their board. You know, we got Hoovers now, Google. My God, just we're inundated. So, anyway, sorry.
I hope we're taking this away, though, seriously, in terms of the ease at which you have to do what was very complicated in the olden days to do numbers, but you have that resource at your fingertips. CoStar, Google, all the resources that you need to take full advantage of that. And what I'm really hoping in something like this, that you can look at the assets that you have as like the computer that you have in front of you now, but understand that it's one thing to know the technical thing, but it's a whole nother thing to know the soft skills. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to lean towards something leaning from folks who've been here before to lean back and reach back to older folks to understand how you came up with this and why, which kind of leads me really to Sam. Sam and I serve on the Board of Regents together now, so the team is back together. So we serve on the Board of Regents together. But one of the things I always notice about this guy, he has the ability to build relationships. And I think that ability to build relationships is another thing that's very priceless in our industry, because I think you lead with the relationship, and it's not like you're trying to get something from someone other than their friendship and to build that. Where'd that really come from? Because the rumor has it that you were groomed as a child to become governor of this state. Somebody told me that once.
I'm not sure.
Have you heard that?
I've actually heard that before.
Yes. True statement?
Yeah, maybe, sort of.
It doesn't pay enough, does it?
Dallas and I do have another day job that pays extremely well. We get zero, but we have 340,000 clients. That's the students at the 26 public colleges and universities in the state of Georgia. And so Dallas and I spend an enormous amount of time. It's a very big responsibility, but it's one that I'm very proud to be a part of, and it's an honor to have to get to work with Dallas every single day on that. And I've spoken to literally hundreds of student groups over the years, and soft skills is the thing that I typically talk about. There's you young people are so much more talented than we were when we came out. Your education was better, your work experiences, your internships. I'm almost embarrassed. When I started September 1st, 1987, I get up early. I go to Cushman & Wakefield. Famous receptionist Myra asked me, they were hiring 3 people that day, an office broker, an industrial broker, and a retail broker. And I introduced myself, and she goes, well, Sam, are you the office, industrial, or retail broker? I had no idea what the hell. I didn't know either. I had zero idea what I had just signed up for. You people are so much more smart about the profession you're entering, your education. but I'm disappointed that y'all don't have a focus on the soft skills. You're extremely brilliant, your technical skills, your analytical skills, but the interaction with people part, and I'll tell you, the reason these two are so successful, they, to me, have what is the most important part of success in our business. When people ask me, the number one thing that's important is likability. Do you like that person? Do you want to be around that person? Do you have confidence in that person? Do you feel like there's somebody that has your best interest at heart? You're not going to learn that in your real estate classes, your finance classes. You've got to have those soft skills. I'm amazed. I know I'm old school. I'm amazed. I'll have young people come see me and they've got 3-day growth beard. I mean, I know you think that's cool looking, but to an old guy, I'm looking at you like you're lazy. You come in with, I don't care if you got your clothes at Target. I could care less how much your clothes cost. But I have people come see me. They look like they slept in their clothes, and that just, to me, I'm going, that looks like you're slovenly and you don't have work ethic. I mean, there's so many old school that people look at me like, gosh, but this is the up 20,000 whatever year it is, 2023. You're talking like you're somebody's great grandfather. But I'm telling you, the people skills to be able to look someone in the eye, write them thank you notes, remember their name, shake their hand, look them in the eye. I mean, those things don't go away. And if you want to differentiate, it's really hard to differentiate with your academic prowess because there's 1,000 of you that look just the same with 4 O's and great work experience. You want to differentiate yourself? Come in, have done your homework on who Andy is, who I am, what company I work for. Ask me questions about my career. Ask me questions about my family. Look me in the eye. Follow up with a thank you note. Those things are priceless and timeless. And to forget about those is going to be to your own detriment.
Can I add to that? Yeah, before I add to it, why don't you say something?
No, you're chomping at the bit. Go ahead.
So
That's enough.
I'm reminded that, Cushman & Wakefield over the years has spent a fortune, as has CREB, JL. Sorry.
Whatever that little company.
It's a little company. On training salespeople. Folks, you can't train a salesperson. If somebody doesn't have it, you can't make them be a salesman. Now, you can take a person that has sales skills and make them better. For another time, I mean, some of these sales courses just amazing. It always occurs to me that there's a guy up there, Mike Lipsy, sells bottled water. He's up there telling you how to be a better broker, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if you're such a good broker, what are you teaching a sales course for? Why aren't you out there doing deals?
I don't know. I think Lipsy does a good job. So
See on the tape?
put that.
Judge,
Just the minutes reflect that I said Lipsy does a good job. Please, thank you.
Go ahead.
Is that
tell me more.
So there's a company called INPO, Institute of Nuclear Power Operations. And it's a quasi-governmental entity that trains the people that work in nuclear generating plants. They're the ones that run the courses on how to shut down reactors in an emergency and whatever. and it, as you might expect, is peopled by a lot of ex-U.S. Navy nuclear submariners. And the CEO was a fellow by the name of Zach Pate. Zach was ramrod straight, shaved head, came across as gruff, and he ran his direct reports like you would expect a commander of a naval submarine to do. And so if you were going to do a meeting with Zach, you had to do your presentation the day before to his 3 direct reports. Well, they were out. One of the members, so people who ran nuclear plants for Southern Company and others, sat on the board of IMPO. And the guy that ran nuclear for an energy company down in Louisiana that we do a lot of work for, said, you need to get up and talk to Zach Pate. We need some space, and you did a great job for us down here, so go see him. And I went up, and I had all these horror stories about Zach Pate, and I had to do my presentation. Well, I don't know what I'm going to say till about a millisecond before it comes out of my mouth. But I tried to explain what I was going to do. So I walk into Zach Pate's office, and 2 of his underlings are in there. Somebody else went with me. Well, I looked around, and I saw 2 prints of quail hunting pictures up on his wall. And he also learned I'll go in and call somebody Mr. Smith if it's Mr. Smith. But if Mr. Smith then says, hi, I'm Bill Smith, it's Bill from then on. Zach had introduced himself as Zach. And I said, you a quail hunter? Oh, do you like to go wing shooting, Andy? Yes, sir, I do. And just so happened to have a place we might need to get you down there. And I looked over, he had a lamp on his desk, and it had an Auburn football helmet, made out of lamp. And I started ragging him. I said, you went to Auburn? Oh, yeah. I said, they teach you to drive a tractor down there? And I got him laughing, and so we had a guy at Christopher Wakefield, good old guy, I won't mention his name, but he was not a natural. And he would rehearse what he was going to say verbatim. Well, that's all well and good till somebody interrupts you.
Yeah, right. You need it.
Your shit out of luck. So I still do that. Take a deep breath. They're not going to bite you.
Andy, we're going to stop right there. It's 2:00. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Come back. We're going to involve the audience.
I was just going to give the secret of my success.
We want to hold that.
They came.
That's the cliffhanger. We're going to hold that to the very end. They got to stay to get that, Andy. Thank y'all. 5 minutes.
Sarah did it. Take it.
Thanks so much. So we are going to take some questions from the audience on the last session. So I had some really good questions out in the audience, and I've said this to a couple people. You've got the bank up here. It's time to make a withdrawal. And the way you're going to get a withdrawal, you need to ask that question that you need to ask. And there's no ridiculous questions unless after you ask the question we say that was ridiculous. So let's go to the audience. What's saying? So first hand up, first 3 hands up. Okay, Beverly. Okay. Those are, we got my 3. Boom, boom, boom.
I'm Pete Beverly. The question I'd like to ask for the panel. And, I'm property development visually. Was there one transaction that did it, or what was that? Things you know. Oh, this was on.
I'm going to answer that question first, and I'm going to answer this way. I got brought in on a deal with a guy by the name of Sam Holmes and John Schlesinger called the Georgia Lottery. We represented the Georgia Lottery. It ended up being, I think, 125,000 square foot deal or something like that. First $1 million fee I ever saw. That's when the light came on for me. And that's when I called Herman Russell and said, we need to do this. So that's what I left Cushman and just went over there. But that literally was a deal that I was on with him and John Schlesinger.
For me, it was, this is, 7 or 8 years in the business. We did a deal for Liberty Mutual at Galleria. It's like a 60,000 foot deal. It was really in deference to Andy, this was when John and my partner and I kind of, for the first time, kind of the little babies kind of got their wings and started to fly away. We did it on our own. It was the first time we had done anything of any size without, our partnership that we had for 7 or 8 years with Andy. And so that was for us. It gave us a great deal of confidence, and it helped us feel like we were going to be able to do it on our own. And then the second one for me is when we left, Cushman & Wakefield was, the absolute, again, I know I'm biased. There's all these phenomenal companies in this city, but I do think when I was there, it's still a phenomenal firm. I know it was the best from when in the 90s. We just had unbelievable, legendary people that have gone on to great careers. And when we left, it was a very difficult decision to us, but we decided to do something entrepreneurial, and we were off by ourselves and with a firm that nobody had ever heard of. You go from a firm that everybody knows, Cushman & Wakefield, to a group, Insignia what? No one had a clue. So we competed for a deal called Palmer & Kay. It was an insurance company, and we beat some other firms out that were prominent firms, and that gave us the confidence that, hey, we might be able to really do this even with a name that wasn't a household name. And that's one of the great things about this business. I mean, confidence is so important. You get a couple of breaks like we got with those two that really gave you that feeling that, hey, I'm going to be able to do this, and kind of helped us get our careers going in a different fashion. So thanks for the question, and those two meant a lot to me.
Absolutely.
So there was one transaction I remember that was a company that was at the Terraces over in the perimeter area, and so I was maybe the verge of stalking the CEO, but I was spending a lot of time tracking him and trying to get meetings, and was fortunate to finally get an opportunity to go in and present. And it was John Schlesinger and myself went in, and we pitched it, and we won it. And then we had a kickoff meeting, and so John and I were going to the kickoff meeting, and I had been given a briefcase. It was my father's briefcase, and we had all the files in it to kind of go over the market and things of that nature. And I couldn't open the briefcase because it had a combo lock on it. And as we're driving to the meeting, and I am just feeling like I've hit it. Like I'm like, this is, I think I just was feeling good about myself. And then I'm like, John, we got a problem. He's like, what? It's like, the effing briefcase won't open. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, and he goes, and this tells you how quick a processor this guy has. He goes, try 001. I was like, 001, boom, it opens. And I'm like, so then I got back to maybe feeling a little bit smaller than I was at the time. But that was one of them. And then when I had an opportunity to join Cushman, it was the first week. I don't know if you remember this. The first week, there was a group down at Equitable called Federal Defender Program, and went in and had a meeting. Excuse me?
It was the Federal Public Defender, wasn't it?
Who is this guy? Federal Defender Program. Okay. It's coming to you in a second.
He can't remember his, but he remembers yours.
CRBE. So then I remember Mike and I went in there, and that was kind of the same that Sam felt like when you go and you do something different, and you've got all the voices in your head, was it the right thing, and this and that, and so when you win something, when you've left the nest, if you will, and you've won something, I remember that was a pivotal moment. Yeah. Now,
I was just asking if, like the public defender in think more. There's a program.
yes.
Okay.
Always thirsting for knowledge.
And Andy, do you want to talk about that first deal that made you feel like you've arrived?
The best deal I made in my career was signing up with Cushman Wakefield. I've been there 45 years. I had chances to leave. There are those of you who remember Johnny Gresham, played football for Georgia Tech. Gresham really tried to hire me, and he said, look, tell me what you need to live, but don't worry about the money, because I'm going to give you pieces of all these transactions, of all these properties, and it'll shelter every penny of your income. And I said, Johnny, I don't know jack shit about development. He said, we got people that know that. I didn't go. I stayed. I'm really trying to dig back into this whiskey-laden brain cells up to try to think of some of those early transactions at Adair. I think I was at best a journeyman. But I had the benefit of Chip Stevens taking me to meetings.
Awesome.
I just always thought.
We had, yeah, there we go.
Mary Webb, I just left the bar, Walton, Benson can. There's a red sheep died back in economic funds. He said blow up office. So, like, it would be the office. So how would you guys how will you get the synergy from the new people you don't have anymore? Okay. And first question, and how do you get the 35-year point to get you out of in this like correct by any others? Okay. So,
I think that's you said.
Yeah, I think the question was, that you came back from a CCIM conference in Boston, and somebody there was saying basically office is dead, right? Okay, Casey Conway.
so what you have and about younger people that how you take them from the how would you get that category hybrid of the old situation that synergy that's right now?
Yeah, I think we probably all have a very strong opinion on that topic in this. I mean, I'm a firm believer, and I think we're all of us are in the same industry, so we probably all share this. Is that this is an apprenticeship model, and you can't build culture, you can't train people, you can't mentor. I mean, just all of that is not done via teams. I'm just I don't, and it's not that I'm old fashioned, something like that. I just think we're a social species, and I think there are certain functions that we definitely have learned through the pandemic, that functions that don't necessarily need to be in the office 5 days a week. Maybe they're very successful remotely, but I think for a lot of the core businesses, you have to be in person for that. And so I think the demand has obviously shifted. I mean, these guys are in it every day now, but it's, that's probably gone 30%, is probably that part of that market is just may not be coming back in the next 2 to 5 years. But I think the balance of power has shifted now that the markets have moved on us, and it's really, it's still pretty strong labor market, but the power shifted back to the employer a bit. And I think with that then comes the ability to say, we are back 3 days a week. We are back 5 days a week. And if you don't want to make that commute or be, part of that, then there's probably another opportunity for you somewhere else. But yeah, I'm not a believer that office is dead.
I would agree with John. I think the conversation about the demise of the office is overrated. I do, obviously, we're all living it. We're definitely seeing it impact the size of requirements. I think the vast majority of transactions that I'm working on are for square footages that's lower than what my client is currently in. And again, we're in the business of advocacy. If they feel like they can be productive in a smaller footprint, that's great, right? Less rent. That's awesome. That's what our jobs are. But I'll tell you, from a mentorship and from a career, I tell all you young people here, get your rear end in an office and get it there every single day. I've learned more about hybrid from having 2 children in the workforce. I've got a 28-year-old and a 27-year-old, and their maturation has been so much flatter than mine was, because the vast majority of their time they've been sitting on a computer at home. My daughter was in D.C. with 5 girls in a brownstone in Logan Circle for 2 years. And I'm also concerned about young people's mental health. We're all relationship people. If you put me in a room with 5 people in a brownstone for 2 years and didn't see anybody, I would be a Looney Tunes by now. We're seeing our clients have attrition because they don't have the connection to their employees that they had. But when everybody's in the office, we're seeing a lack of culture. I learned more by sitting in offices, listening to Andy, listening to Mike Shelley, Mark Christopher, Denise Norton, these wonderful professionals in this industry, by just sitting and listening and watching. And young people today, unfortunately, are not getting that. And I think that the biggest thing for all of us, especially younger people, is you've got to learn the business. And the quicker you learn the business, the more confidence you have to go out and transact business. And if you're not learning and you're sitting on a computer, you're just simply not getting the experience that you're gaining. So I'm thankful. Like, for example, I've been very disappointed in my own company. We're the world's largest real estate services firm. And the fact that we haven't mandated that people be back is a joke, in my opinion. You can tell I'm not in management. You can tell they don't really ask my opinion, but I think we should be leaders, not followers, and we ought to be leading the industry and bringing people back to the office. But you see the energy. I think Jennifer would agree. You see, I see Kirk back there. You see the energy in our office now. I mean, for a while you had the chicken and egg, right? People didn't want to come because when they came, nobody was there. But now we're all there. And the energy's phenomenal, the cross-selling, the phenomenal, the knowledge sharing's phenomenal. So I think that companies are seeing that, and I think you're going to see a continued focus on getting back in the office. Now, is it going to be 5 days a week? I doubt it, but I do think you're going to see much more commitment to going to the office. As it relates to the last question, I'll try to tackle the 35-year, just being lucky. John, I think he's the most talented person that's in our industry. John is an exceptionally talented person. And when we started our careers, I was kind of the business development guy and he was the technical guy. I think that's unfair for both of us now. I think I'm pretty good at what I do. I'm not as good as he is, but I tell you what, he's a pretty good business development guy too. And the way he does it's differently than the way I do it. I do it the old fashioned way. I know a lot of people. I spend a lot of time with relationships. John gets a lot of business because he's really good at what he does. People forget that's business development too, right? It hasn't just got to be the guy that's up at 3 o'clock at night at the bar talking to somebody. You can also be the guy that's known as being really talented at what they do, and that's what John is. So I've learned a lot from him. And then you got to have a complete and total comp. We've never had a contract. We've never had a business plan. We've never had an argument about compensation. We just both have a passionate belief that you got to serve clients and treat people right. And he's been a delightful friend and mentor, and I'm just proud to have worked with him for a long time.
Here. Last question from the front.
All right, so you guys started your careers and still are looking something, John. Faba's 10 rounds. But can you go back, work your starting over, and how would you still do that? Or were you focus on learning this when you decided? Sure, where would you go? Where did you opt in?
Who in the world wouldn't have wanted to build a multifamily for the last?
It only took me 30 years.
Those son of a guy stealing what they've done the last couple of years. Shit. I mean, we got we got I think we've got the largest market share in that. But no, well, maybe not. But if somebody's making more money than Malcolm and those guys, and God bless them, because those guys have just they're Elon Musk range. But I like what I do. I really do. I mean, I don't think that there's always a hot market, right? Industrial. When I first started, guys were doing 3-year deals for $2 a foot. That was a tough business. Now, I mean, the top producer in CB history, Tony Capano, the last 3 years, an industrial guy at Atlanta, Georgia. If you'd have told me that in 1987 when I was working with Mike and Andy, that an industrial guy in Atlanta would outgross multifamily in New York, a tenant rep guy in LA, Chicago. But I don't think that you can look at the compensation of those. You got to figure out where you think your skill sets are best suited for. If you feel like you're good at what you do, you're going to make money regardless of which discipline you're in. So don't pick the flavor of the month, because the flavor of the month's not going to be the flavor of the next month, more than likely. You find out what you like and what you're good at and what you're passionate about, money will come.
I'd have been a private equity guy, but then I would have had to learn how to use an HP 12C.
That's a lot of paper you would have had to learn.
Can I wait
Yes.
there? Yeah, because I think it's a great question, and I've got 3 sons who are 19, 18, and 16. So so one's going to be interning this summer with a real estate group, and so I'm shifting to a point in that relationship with them where beginning to kind of think about what their next chapters are. And so I thought about that question you're asking, and I think Sam's answer is totally spot on, which is, you want to find something that you're good at, that you're passionate about, and that you can make a living doing, right? Because if you think about that kind of an Venn diagram, I had a friend tell me once, is like that you want that, right? But if you say you love playing guitar, but you can't make any money playing guitar, John. And I was like, well, maybe, And he's like, no, you can't. So it's like, all right. So it is trying to find, like, you know, growing up in the office brokerage world, I loved it. I loved the ability of controlling your own destiny. I loved kind of the hunt. I didn't love the deal as much, but I knew you had to get good at that. But it was really so Mike was running Atlanta for 29 years, the Atlanta office of Cushman, and had Southeast responsibilities too. And then he went into a national role, and Korn Ferry was doing the search for his replacement. And I was on the search committee, and it's just interesting because I never thought about a shift of getting out of brokerage. And, but I was in a lot of different nonprofits and in leadership role in a junior board or something like that. And I found there's something about those experiences I found real passion about it. It was about kind of working with teams and developing strategy and moving the ball forward and stuff like that. And so, and I remember Mike said, hey, you know, put your hat in the ring. I was like, no, I'm like, that's not even, but then I remember, you know, you talk to, you know, people you're close with and so I ended up deciding to recuse myself from the search committee and put the hat in the ring. And I'm glad it worked out like it did, because then I had an opportunity. I had to fill big shoes, but I had an opportunity to try something totally new, which was, I feel very fortunate to have that experience. And I inherited a terrific team, and we added great talent. And then, you know, then I started taking on a bunch of different roles, and now I'm in something totally different, which it's apartments. And but that is but it's I've always just kept my head down and just tried to do good work, and just where opportunities kind of pop up. I've never been as scripted as some people that I'm friends with that have these kind of life plans, and I've never really done that. But I've always tried to follow my gut a little bit and look for that next challenge, but only if you're happy with it. Because I think the reason that Andy and Sam and Dallas have had so much success is that it blurs between work and life, and it just, and they do it effortlessly, and no surprise they've had a ton of success because of that. And I think that and so that's always been, for me at least, it's just being an active listener on doing something, finding that next challenge.
I want to take a pause here for just a second and just recognize a couple of things. If you are a mentee or have been a mentee here, raise your hand. Raise them high so people can see them. Okay. The people who are raising their hands who have been a mentee here, you need to thank O'Neill. It was under his administration in 2014 that we started the mentorship program, CRE Studio. Empire had a seat on the board because of 2014 because of him. Then ultimately the race relationship.
Well,
and student outreach.
hold on. So you love to do this, and the thing is, but the truth is, this board has had tremendous leadership, and so Robin is an outstanding leader today. Before Robin was Kristen Lamb.
Yes.
And Kristen, like Robin, just a force. And then I had an opportunity to have a board of directors that I worked with on the board, many of which are in this room. They were a force. And so it's just, you talk about being lucky, you know, we hear that a little bit. I mean, I had the good fortune of being with a team at that point that wanted to do things for the industry and for our community. And so it was very much a team effort. So,
you know,
stop doing that.
Teams run with leadership, gives a vision. So receive the damn flowers and say thank you. All right. So I'm going to shift a little bit now from give everybody a break up here for a second. I'm going to ask Dick Bowers to come up. Dick, just grab that mic right there. Or actually come take this seat. I'm going to stand on this side. I'm going to ask the question, then I'm going to come take the seat. Let me just make the statement. I'll come get the mic. You come say it. Let me help you, sir. All
First thing I'd like to say is that I've enjoyed this presentation. These are, I guess, competitors of mine at time, but we've got a great group, and I want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So Dick Bowers, this is a true story. From time to time, I office in the 191 with Edgar Perry, his office. I happen to be there, and I'm on the phone with somebody. I turn around, and I see this guy. Everybody who knows Dick, he walks around with, he's got at least 3 notepads in his hand. He's walking in the building like this, like he's lost. And I said, hold up, man. Dick Bowers is cold calling 191. Hold up. I said, Dick, you still cold calling? He said, Dallas. I said, why don't you get one of your younger people do this? He said, oh, I don't have time for that. So what I want to do I want, number one, to let people know the art of cold call is not dead. And this is the king of cold call, Richard Bowers. So give us some nuggets. Give us some nuggets about cold calling and why you still do it.
Well, I kind of like being the oldest cold caller still in the business. So that's one reason. But,
Check.
I don't know what to say about cold calling. It's a means of meeting and gaining business, and some people, a lot of them are up here are very successful at it, and I don't know that I have a whole lot to add.
So, Dick, walk us through. So you knock on the door, you ask for Miss Smith. She takes the meeting, and then what? What's the pitch, Dick?
And he
I had to get Miss Smith to take the meeting. Well, I need her boss probably, but I don't know. But if Miss Smith is the manager there, I thank her for seeing me and tell her what I do and try to stay in contact. I have made a couple of deals in my career where I walked in, met the lady, and the next thing you know, I'm out showing them space and make a deal fairly quickly. But sometimes it takes a year or two or longer to, I guess, establish the relationship and rapport where a deal can be done with this group. So anyway, that's.
talk about the bobbleheads.
I had nothing to do with that, but there are some bobbleheads that resemble me that are in the marketplace and elsewhere, and some of them have been perhaps abused a little bit, and I don't know if that was intended for me or maybe just kind of a bad joke, but there are bobbleheads that I guess they even have my name on them, I think.
Well, I mentioned, if you remember earlier, I mentioned work ethic. There's nobody that's ever worked. There's just absolutely no one that ever is outworked. And it was an inspiration to me as a young guy. He cold called on Saturday morning because he knew if you were there on Saturday, more than likely you were in leadership position, and that was something I'd never thought about. I've had clients that Dick has called them every week for 25 years. I admire the heck out of it. We're in a competitive business. Dick's good at what he does, and Dick's out there.
Good word on it.
But I admire the fact that obviously we did it a long time, and to keep that passion, to keep that work ethic, that's, my hat. I tip my hat. That's very impressive.
Absolutely. Give a hand for that. Before you go to your seat, Dick, I want to tell you this. I got motivated by one of your bobbleheads. I had a client who I'd been working with. I had to go talk to him about something. He said, Dallas, well, if you hadn't found me anything, this guy, he brings a bobblehead up. This guy says he can help me. I said, God damn it. I got to, had to step my game up. So, it's motivation. Pat.
I got a question for Dick. Is there any truth to the story that while cold calling, you were having a medical episode and called Brady and he said, I'm coming to the emergency room, but I only have 15 minutes?
Now, that story I don't believe is accurate, though.
Any questions for Dick before he sits down? And he has tennis practice, too. That's the other thing I want to respect his time.
it's probably 25 plus years ago. I was staff head of all before them. Now, 250 Williams. And I had the soldiers come back at the back and say, there is this most rude man. Come up in the reception here. He has two phones working at the same time in conversation, and he's asking for you as the third person. That must be Dick. That was my interaction. I've had an infinite respect there. So
Absolutely. Any other questions for Dick? Please give him a hand.
Hey.
I just want to say thank you. The panel and everybody has been great, and I want to wish everybody the best in this business and all the success. And thank you. I had no intention of being up here.
Great job, bud.
Yep.
Thanks for being a great sport. And I know he's got tennis. He's still playing tennis is it every day, every week? No. No.
And that's with them
Awesome.
from boring. How about pickleball, Bullard? That's sports time. Pickleball, the time the best word where and
To work for you, Ted.
this when you start to play, you was like, I don't know, like, so it's not at all. Am I right? I'm just thinking you're getting so damn old, you know. It's better than not getting old. It's better than not getting old.
What is happening here?
No, I don't.
Thanks a lot, Dick. Thanks again. All right. Where were we? I'm like, with you there. With the Andy had something to say. No? Andy, you remember your first deal yet?
Not yet.
Okay, well, I'm hopeful before we wrap up today, you're going to remember your very first deal. Just make it.
Square feet with an A.L. Williams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's right. It was a 500 square foot deal. That's
Oh, my God. A.L. Williams. Yeah.
Prime America was what, 100 down, million feet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
It doesn't fade it.
Hey, man.
It always pays to make small.
Well, you know, a mighty oak grows from one seed. So, speaking of mighty oaks and big trees and oaks, we've talked about very small deals. I want to pivot and talk about the biggest deals that you had. Because, again, this is to motivate young folks to sacrifice and things that they've gone through. If you'd be so kind to talk about the largest deal, Sam, that you've done to date. Not the one that you're doing next week, but the ones that you've done already.
I hadn't thought about that, Dallas. You know, we've been blessed to do some nice size deals.
I want details. I don't want
You know, we had a chance last year to do, or the last couple of years, 2 years, I guess, to do it. Invesco's corporate headquarters and Norfolk Southern's relocation, both which resulted in new buildings. That's always interesting and complex and fun.
What size Invesco first?
300, I think. Norfolk Southern was, what, 600-700. We did State Farm was over 1 million square feet. And State Farm's interesting, again, because, you know, I'm going to say, I'm amazed. We've got a great industry, right? I don't think we've talked about that enough. I mean, a lot of us up here, and many of you all here, have done business in other cities, and you don't have the collegial brokerage network that we have here in Atlanta. You don't have the supportive board of realtors. You don't have the friendships. You don't have the professionalism. It's Atlanta's, I think, is very unique. It's competitive, as I said, but it's also I think a very collegial environment. And State Farm's an example. there's a guy that you all probably know in Atlanta, Ward Green, who's a phenomenal broker, an even better guy. He has his own firm. He was doing State Farm business for years, doing their agent business, doing 500,000, 1,500 foot offices for them. But he did such a good job. And that, for you mentees, I mean, and like Andy mentioned, you say 500 feet that Gruff mentioned that Dick did for A.L. Williams. Every deal is important, right? That 500-foot deal is as important to that client as Norfolk Southern and Infesco's headquarters were to them. Well, Ward had been doing a phenomenal job for them for 20 years, and State Farm decides to do 3 consolidations throughout the country. Atlanta was going to be one of them. Ward called me and John because he felt like that our experience with big deals would add value to his client. And that just again shows you what a great. Ward was looking for what was his client's best interest, not his own compensation. And he thought that our experience doing big deals would help. That the CB's resources could help him provide better service to his client. And so, John, my partner, spent probably every hour for 2 years because it had to result in temporary deals in 4 or 5 buildings until the buildings were built and resulted in great fees. But it also shows, again, you do the right thing, you treat people right, you're going to have opportunities not only for your own procurement of business, but oftentimes other guys think you might be able to help them out. So keep your eye on the ball and do the right thing. And we've been blessed to have a chance to do some nice deals and hopefully have a chance to have a few more before we all call it a day. But those were pretty fun. Actually, Ward is still in it. Bless his heart, he doesn't want to be. We did the Carvana deal. It was a great deal, right? That was pretty fun. That actually, probably the first sublease we've subleased. If you want to sublease it, doesn't sublease, hire me and Jennifer. We'll not sublease it for you. I don't know. We're not very successful in subleasing, but we did do the Carvana deal. It was an awesome deal, and then they turn around and don't need the space. So Ward is still involved, as are we, in trying to dispose of that right now, that our landlord teams are involved in because they're better marketers than we are of sublease space. But no, Ward is we're still tied at the hip with him. It's been a great partnership, and boy, is he a phenomenal person.
Beautiful. John?
I would say the one that I enjoyed probably the most was Intercontinental Hotels Group, which was 488,000 feet at Ravinia. And that was, you remember those calls you get when you win a piece of business. And I remember driving down West Peachtree and getting the call and saying, "Are you ready to work with us?" And I just remember I want to kind of honk the horn. You're just so excited about it because those are real. The business is obviously it's a challenging business, but there's so many highs to it, and so that was a challenging transaction, but Travis Jackson, Addison Merriweather, Nan Loudon, we had just a dynamite team working on that, and they've like so many corporations have gone through kind of different ways of working, and so they've shifted their plan like a lot of different corporations, and so but that was a particular one I was pleased with.
What size deal was that?
488.
That's 488,000. Not 488 square feet. So I just wanted to make sure he wasn't that excited about that. But no, even if it was, first deal still.
Andy,
do you remember the largest deal you've done? We know you don't remember the smallest.
They all seem to be running in about the 300,000 to 400,000 square foot range. We've represented the power company, the counterpart to the Southern Company here.
Can you tell how you got that deal? That's still a funny story to me.
I got that deal because a guy in our San Francisco office, like many Americans, didn't know that Houston was closer to New Orleans than Atlanta. And he called us, we had just joined C&W, and it was Middle South Utilities then. It's now called Entergy. And apropos pandemic, they have sold 408,000 square feet, and we only need 290,000 square feet this time around. This is the fourth CEO, the fifth real estate person. It's been a great ride.
So thank God he didn't know geography. That's the moral of the story, right?
I mean, it's the absolute truth. And the guy, Pete Dayton, was one of our, he ran the West Coast for Cushman & Wakefield. Anyway.
I also going to mention this is just again to show you how important relationships are and important friendships are. We did NBC's 660,000 foot deal last year with Hilton Howell and Gibson with my dear friend David Demers, who used to all work with us. Again, he was on the other side of the table. I met, I don't know if you know a guy named Mark Lazarus. He's the number 2 guy. He might be the number 1 guy at NBC now after number 1 guy got canned yesterday. But I knew Mark when he was at a Cube at Turner selling ad sales in the late 80s. And he and I've been friends. You invest in people, you treat people right, you have friends, right? You take care of people, and those things. Who knew 35 years later he would be the number 2 guy and want to set up a studio in Atlanta. So it just I tell that not because I'm saying, oh boy, I did a big. People are what's important in our business, and you're in for the long haul. And he couldn't do anything for me. I couldn't do anything for him in the 80s, but we were friends. He knew that he could trust us. He knew we'd shoot him straight, and it 35 years later results in one of the a deal that we're proud of because it's going to be phenomenal for Atlanta. So keep those relationships coming.
Dallas, would have
To the assembly there, the old Dorville plant. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Dallas, what about you?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
He says you dominated Midtown the last couple of years.
No, to Sam's point, it's all about the relationships. And I tell people it's all about the long road. The Microsoft transaction was the largest for us. It was 523,000 square feet. But that's the one that hits the papers. But we do a ton of deals for FedEx across the United States. I think Corey's in the room somewhere. Could tell me what that number is. That's our quant guy back here. That's our spreadsheet. Our HB12C is back there. His name's Corey Ferguson. A few million square feet there. We're dealing with them right now. So for us, it's we're.
But can you sorry to interrupt? But can you take this room into the first meeting with Michael?
Yeah. So okay. So
Our story.
it's back to the long play. That not even. It's all about the relationship. I served on the board at Georgia State. I chaired the real estate committee for the foundation board for 8 years of the 9 years I was on the board, and on my last, I'm getting ready to leave out. On my last CoStar meeting, Coronet meeting, we met Michael Ford. Just hit it off. He's from Alabama guy. Other than that, everything is cool. But we just hit it off, and he took us to visit Microsoft campus and didn't talk about any deals or anything like that. Just the relationship. And then I'm back home. Mark Becker's president of Georgia State. I said, hey, Mark, we visited Microsoft's campus. I'd love to get, my last official act as chair of the real estate committee, I want to take you out and sort of his cabinet to go visit the campus to see if there's some ideas around here that we may be able to use for the Georgia State's campus, sure. So ironically, at that time, I had moved back home with my mother because we had picked up all this business. I didn't have time to try to figure out where we're going to live and all this kind of stuff. So I literally was living at home with my mom while we were doing all these big deals. And so that became a joke. Everybody's like, Dallas, you're doing all these big deals. Are you living back home with your mom? I said, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to leave because my mom's fried chicken and fried corn and all this kind of stuff. Why would I leave? And so Mike knew this. We joked about that. So I'm coming out there with Mark Becker and with 6 white people. It was me and 6 white people. Mike is white, and he just happened to have 6 white people with him when I showed up. So I'm walking in with my 6 white people. He's got his 6 white people. And he greets me like this. Are you still living at home with your mama? I said, yes. Yes, I'm still living at home with my mama. And she cooked fried chicken last night. I don't know if I'm ever going to leave. She's washing clothes. Why would I leave? And so we ended up, Egbert Perry and I'm leaving this out, but Egbert Perry and I have been getting together for months to talk about, I was at Denzel Washington's house. This is random, but it's in the book. If you hadn't read the book, I have a book out called In the Black. Pick up the book, and it's in there detailed. But I tell the story about being at Denzel's house, a beautiful house, 40,000 square foot main house, 14,000 square foot guest house on 8 acres overlooking Beverly Hills. And we're walking through the gardens. He's got fruit trees and all this kind of stuff. But he's got these sayings and these plaques. And he stopped at this one plaque. And it was small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss ideas. It was actually a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt, although her name wasn't on it because he rejiggered the words around. And Denzel stops. My best friend at the time was doing work for him as a lawyer. And Denzel hits me like, Dallas, that's what we need to do, talk about ideas from time to time like that. So fast forward, Egbert Perry was the first guy I called when I saw that plaque because Egbert is one of the most...
Say it again.
Small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss ideas. And Egbert is one of the best idea guys, just a brilliant guy. So Egbert was the first guy I called. I said, man, we need to get together from time to time, just talk about ideas. And so we would get together, thumbs up on Marietta Street Boulevard, and we would, okay, well, what problem are we going to solve? Housing, food insecurity, wealth gap. I mean, all these different things. We did this for about 3 breakfasts. And then finally we locked in on housing. Now, mind you, I'm living at home with my mama. And so Egbert asked me at one of those breakfasts, are you still living at home with your mama? I said, yeah, I'm living at home with my mama. She cooked fried chicken. I had fried corn. I don't know if I'm ever going to leave. She's washing clothes. So I ended up drawing, we'd gone back and forth. Our job was to kind of shoot holes in the other person's idea. Like, we weren't going to stop till we thought it was the best idea. I said, man, here's the problem. I said, first of all, we're working in 36 states right now. We've got doing deals all over, but we're based in Atlanta, but we got FedEx is going gangbusters, AT&T's going gangbusters. We got all these clients we're working with. I don't have time to just stop trying to figure out a house, and quite frankly, I just don't want to have another expensive house note. And so we're at breakfast having this conversation, not realizing I just drew Microsoft's logo, these 4 boxes. I told Egbert, after he asked me still about her mama, I said, is your mama? I said, yeah. I said, I don't want to just buy a house. I said, what I really want to do is to draw these 4 squares. I want to be able to create something like this from a governance standpoint, which Egbert already did with the housing thing when he changed public housing in America. I said, you can work on the governance piece so that we can help people legendary residents who live in certain communities have the ability, if Sam lived in the community, his family be first dibs on this quad. So work it out where you can own the whole thing, but you have to live in one of the units. But from day one, you can rent the other 3 out. So now you're giving revenue from day one. So Egbert says, you're onto something right there. I like that. So we're going back and forth. We start calling it empowerment housing. Fast forward, when Michael Ford asked me, you still living at home with your mama? I go, yeah. And I end up drawing the same thing on this napkin. And he goes, are you onto something right there? He said, Dallas, here's our problem. If we come in town and we build a 500,000 square foot building somewhere, we're going to gentrify that community just by placing that building. So what's going to happen is only C-suite people making money can live in the community and walk to work because we're going to price everybody else out. He said, but if we had what you have, the people who clean our buildings, who protect our buildings, can stay in the community. Keep me posted on that. So I leave, I go to the hotel, I call Egbert. I said, man, because Egbert and I have been doing this thing for at least 2 years, going back and forth about this. I said, man, you're not going to believe this shit we've been talking about? I'm sorry. This stuff we've been talking about? But I said it just like that. Microsoft says they can get behind that. He said, what do you mean? And I explained it to him. And Mike says, I'm going to come down to Atlanta. Atlanta was not on Microsoft's radar at all. So thank God I was living at home with my mom. And so literally it went from that, he came to Atlanta, started falling in love with Atlanta. The 523,000 square foot deal happened as a result of that. And then the 90-acre purchase from Mark Teixeira happened. All of that really, and then as a result of that deal happening for us, I started getting calls from billionaires who own buildings all over the place. Because this is the story, they go like, all right, well, so Microsoft did that deal. So call CB, call Cushman, call JLL, one of those guys did it. And they called these guys and felt like, no, we didn't do it. Like, but who the hell is this company who did this deal? T. Dallas Smith Company. So they had no idea. So I get a call from a guy named Young Woo. Young Woo's out of New York. He's a landlord for Google in New York. In fact, he's going to be our CRE studio guest that's going to be coming up this year. You don't want to miss his story. He got a hell of a story. Coming to America with nothing kind of story. He's a Dallas. I don't know you. You do biggest deal in America 2020 when everybody else is closing. I need to know you. And so this is 2020, and he's all about relationships. He's Korean, and he loves to drink. He will drink you under the table. He says, this is after we went through liquor, now we're on sake, we're on the other things now. And he goes, Dallas, you black, I'm Korean. We underdogs in America, but we're going to be super underdogs, and we toast. And so he's just been a great guy. That's how I met Alan Morris the same way, Mitch Rudin the same way. So all these guys have become friends, and it's what Sam's saying. Don't take it for granted. And we build these relationships not because we're trying to get the next deal. We're building relationships because we like these.
That's what I was going to say about Dallas is a great example. These two are too. I've been asked all the time, how do you know some people? Why do you, what clubs can I join to meet people? What organization? That's so transparent. People see through that. So do what's passionate to you. What do you enjoy? Dallas is just explaining a passion of his that is helping people. That's cool. That's no doubt. He is helping people. But at the same time, through that passion of helping people, he got a chance to develop relationships that helped his business. So the business we have, the great thing about our business is also some of the negative for people. All you got is 24 hours, right? We all have the same amount of time. We're not tethered to a desk. We don't work at thank God Andy saved me. I don't work at a branch bank for trust company. You've got 24 hours in the day, and our business allows you the time to get involved in things that you feel that you can add value to, that you think is going to help your fellow man. And you know what? You do things that help people, that people see how passionate you are about it. You're amazed at how they can turn around and provide business opportunities. But you don't get involved with something with the intent that this is going to be helpful to my business. You get involved because you think you can add value to help people. And Dallas, to me, is the best example of that in our industry.
Has this been the best CE class you ever got? And now I'm drinking an old fashioned. So Lord knows how the last 10 minutes may end. A broken fist. No, please, Pat. No, not that. I don't even remember that. But anyway, O'Neill, yes.
All right, so you're, what are we, towards kind of end of April. So give the room a sense of your first 3.5 months running this organization as president.
Definitely the best commercial real estate board ever. Robin has just been awesome. The administration here, give her a hand. Yeah. It's just a beautiful place. It really is. I think one thing I'd tell the mentees all the time is to make sure that you leverage the relationships here. we're the largest commercial board in the United States. I've gotten to know Kenny Parcell, who's the president of National Association of Realtors, which is the largest trade organization in the United States with over 1.6 million members. And I'm amazed at the impact that we all have. So when you think about the residential side and you think about what we do on the commercial side, we are economic development. I mean, we're the ones making everything. We saw what happened when housing went down. The whole world collapsed. We're the ones really making things happen. And the fact of the jobs that we do help other people get jobs, and we're helping people get employed and those kind of things. So that's the kind of thing that fuels me. And then to look in the room like today, people of different ethnicities. You got to understand, 1982, when I got in this business, this was not my room. This was not the room I was in. But I was also telling the story about Mr. Tiff, the guy who brought me into real estate business in 1982. And I tell this story because I think it's a story about hope. I think it's a story about reconciliation. And I think it's a story about change. I got brought into the real estate business when I was 19 years old by a guy named Thomas W. Tift. So, Tift County, Tifton, Tift University, that's who brought me into the real estate business. Mr. Tift was 56, I was 19. Mr. Tift's father was the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan in Tift. Yes. So if you want to know how it really happened, get the book. It's called In the Black.
How did you have a book out to do?
Yeah, there's a book. It's stop right there.
Yeah.
But there's a table out there. Yeah, I would definitely sign it. You buy the book. But no, for me, this is a story about hope and change. If we really want to impact America and make real change, people got to make money. We got to help bridge that wealth gap. Because the reality of it is my buddy Egbert Perry says on a regular basis, if you create hell on one side of the town and heaven on the other, at some point they will both meet. And that's the reality we're all living in. So what's the great equalizer? Number one, we're living in the greatest country of all time. And so the reality is simply, and I'm not sure what your faith is, but I'm a believer. I have been. I got saved June 2nd, 1987. And I know what God's called me to do. And one of the things he's called me to do is to do just what we're doing now. This is what I had envisioned. These are the guys I would want to sit down in front of. I do this with Andy on a regular basis. This is why I know a lot of Andy's stories. If you give me a minute, I'll tell him what his first deal was. Because he can't remember it, I'll tell him. But I spent a lot of time. I've been to more soul food places back in the day with Andy Gurner than anybody else. I didn't know about Andy Keefe's, Deacon Burton's. I was like, Andy, and the Royal Peacock. I was like, I didn't know about these places. I didn't go to these places because my mother cooked soul food every damn night, so I didn't. But for me, it was about great conversations with Andy, great conversations with John, and we're in the trenches together with this guy helping to save the university system, and not save, but make it the best it can have. Good, better, best, right? Is what the chancellor says on a regular basis. So we're in a beautiful business, and I forget who said it, but the reality is simply, this is a business where I came in straight commission. I had no draw when I first came in with Mr. Tiff. Had no draw, but what I loved about this business, it gave me free time. Because what I realized about America, everybody wants to make money to do what? So they can have time to do what the hell they want to do. Well, in this business, you get the time first. You get that up front. Now you just got to go get some money, to go with it. And so that was always the thing for me. Time, freedom for me was important to me. And it's the only asset that we cannot get back. I've been married before, and I've remarried. So in America, you can get everything else again. You can get another wife, you can get more kids, get another house, get into more cars, but you cannot get time back. So time is our most precious asset. And the fact that these guys came here today to spend their time with us today, I was very serious about the time, the value of their time. And yet y'all have this asset in front of you. This bank is sitting in front of you. Make sure that you withdraw from the bank. But also remember that you're going to have to deposit. You're going to have to deposit. You're going to have to feed back into other people's lives the way other people's fed into your life. It's critical. It's that one thing that I did not know how much joy I would receive, because here's the news flash. I did not know I was really going to start a brokerage firm, because I didn't want to start a brokerage firm, because I didn't want to be the broker responsible for all the damn brokers. Only this industry is where, you got 1,000 brokers, but the broker is the one whose head can get chopped off because one of those people messed up and did something stupid. And so, but once God showed me through Leonte Benton, who's now the president of our company, I'm real clear on what my calling is. And it's to help expose this business to people, particularly people who don't look like me, or who look like me, because this has not been an industry with people who look like me. And it's not a threat to anybody. It's a uplifting of everybody. Because I don't know if you noticed, but the entire world is changing. It's getting much more diverse. And people are asking that question. And if you don't have an answer for that question, very soon you'll find yourself just not in business. And it's back to what Sam said. Those relationships that you build with one another. I'm a very quirky guy. My dad grew up, loved country music. So when I saw my man with the black hat right there, hell, I thought my dad was here. And my dad died in 2010. I was like, oh, shit, he's here. But my dad was a black man living in the hood dressed like a damn cowboy. Jerry Glanville, he loved Jerry Glanville. So big Falcons fans. We had season tickets since 1968.
Very glad.
Yeah, exactly. Boss. And so if we weren't doing things around the house that he wanted us to do, he would put on country music. And it used to drive me freaking crazy. Everybody else listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire. I listened to damn, whoever it was. But now I'm listening to Miranda Lambert and, Dolly Parton and shit. I'm like, man. Anyway, my dad died 2010, so country music is how I bring him back to me. I'm saying all that to say, man, this is the best business in the world. And we get the pleasure of doing it. And I get the ability and just the humble right to lead this organization, along with other presidents in this room, John O'Neill, Mike Elting. I'm sure I'm leaving somebody else out. Jeff Pollock, former president. Our president-elect, Pat, stand up. Another good Cushman Wakefield man. So this is just don't take this for granted, because the biggest deal in the United States, the other piece, once I met Michael Ford, now we got to figure out what the hell building we're going to show him. And John Hagee was president of the organization. We'd wrapped up a retreat in the weekend. And John says, Dallas, what you got to work? I said, man, I've got this client coming to town. I got to figure out. He said, what are you looking for? I said, we're about 150, 200,000 square feet. I said, you got anything? He said, no, anything. But we got something coming out of the ground. What do you got? The building where they are now, the 523,000 square feet, were the other two buildings. That was built spec by Hines. It was not built for Microsoft. Most people think that. It was not. It was a spec building. So I asked John, who's been in the business longer than me, I've been in the business now 41 years. I said, John, have you ever had a spec building totally leased before the CO came? He's like, Dallas, let me think about that. No. The answer is no. But I'm telling people, I'm not sure if that deal would have happened there if I wasn't engaged in this organization, if I wasn't on this board and in those meetings. And so you just don't know, your next deal may be sitting next to you. So that's the importance of having relationships, building good relationships around here. So anyway, John only asked me one question. I talked 2 hours. I apologize.
I'm just watching the Cheetos eating contest here at my right.
Pretty tight.
I think this is the part. Okay, well, we have questions here from the mentees. Some of them they did the work of writing questions. I do want to ask the question about the mission name of Ashayla. Did I say it right? All right, Ashayla. What are your insights on the most significant challenges that the commercial real estate industry is expected to face in the next few years? I think we talked a little bit about the office being an issue. Additionally, what steps can tenant reps take to adapt I got the wrong strength glasses this morning, I apologize. To adapt these challenges and continue thriving in an ever-evolving market. Anybody want to take that? There's another part of this.
I'll take a look. Quick shot. I mean, we all know that the landlord side of the business is going to be stressed right now. I mean, you've got a significant amount of loan maturities that are coming due the next couple of years, and the capital markets have changed dramatically since those buildings were built and originally financed. Tenant reps, we've got to be very careful now, again, like we have. I've been through a couple of cycles in my career, and now we're going to have to dust off the offset language that we've had in the past. We're going to have to start making sure we have, locked.
Can you talk about offset language?
You're going to have, it's going to be incumbent. Matter of fact, this is kind of analogous. We're John, Jennifer, Ellen, our partnership, we're having a dinner in a couple of weeks with a number of landlords, because we're talking about the business is going to be dramatically different in the next couple of years. You typically think about you're on one side of the table, the other guy or ladies on the other side of the table. We're all on the same table right now to try to make sure that a deal makes sense for both sides, that landlords can service the commitments that we negotiate so passionately for our clients. And we've got to be, and I'm saying this not because landlords don't want to do it. Landlords are great people too. It's just they're going to be under some significant pressures with existing debt to be in refinance. So you have to be exceptionally careful that we're going to have to negotiate deals that work for your clients, that you may have to escrow monies. You got to make sure that the commitments are going to be able to be taken care of by the other side. And so it's just going to be it's a challenging environment. You don't always have those challenges in a rising economy. When times are going to be as challenged with capital markets, we're going to all be cognizant of that and provide additional service to our clients. So it's going to be an interesting time. Again, as I said, I'm confident in the office business being resilient, but we're going to have to all be very, very careful in how you negotiate deals the next couple of years.
Yeah, I totally agree that this wall of debt maturities is a real issue, and just through a multifamily lens, that's $322 billion coming due this year and next. So there was a lot of short-term financing that was done the past couple of years, and we've all been watching the impact of 9 rate increases and what's that beginning to do to the economy. And while inflation's coming down, which is good, we're also seeing fundamentals begin to erode. And so then folks have to determine they can't get the rent growth they thought. So then they have to and they can't get, the borrowing costs have gone up. So the math has changed a great deal in 12 months. And so there's going to be some stress, and then there's probably going to be some distress. So it's going to be, but downturns are great opportunities too.
Great time.
And especially in this sector, whether you're on the office leasing side or the capital market side, you gain share in downturns. You pass people on the turn, not the straightaway. And so I think looking into a downturn can be some of people's best years.
Could not agree more with that. You in good times, in our business, we're dealing with a procurement guy. We're dealing with a real estate lady. In tough times, you're dealing with a CEO. You're dealing with a CFO, because real estate being typically the second largest expense on the company's P&L, that becomes laser focused by the C-suite. You want to add value, you want to differentiate, you have an opportunity in tough markets that sometimes don't get the exposure to the decision makers that they do in good times. And so all of us now have opportunity if things, hopefully won't get too challenged. But to add additionally, construction cost, it's just astounding to me. I just did a renewal for Malden & Jenkins at an accounting firm that I did in 1987 at the Galleria. I just laughed. The tenant improvement allowance was $30 a foot. They built the space out for $30 a foot. We just came out with our project management group came out with their monthly report the other day. Low end $120 to high end $300 a foot. Where you've got buildings throughout the city that are going to come up. They've got 30, 40, 50 bucks pro forma for TI. That's not going to work. So you keep reading about flight to quality. I think that's really kind of misunderstood. It's really flight to capital. We're seeing clients go to buildings because of capital, not because of quality, because they're going to be able to get a significant tenant improvement allowance. Typically, those might be newer buildings that have a construction pro forma that have higher TI numbers. But second generation buildings, it's going to be an absolute struggle with loan maturities, smaller deal sizes, and the TI numbers that being so extravagant. It's just going to be a challenge the next couple of years.
With great opportunities.
Great opportunity.
Absolutely. Sarah, did that cover what you needed? Okay.
It's okay to say no.
All right.
I have another beer. It's good. It's good.
I was going to get that.
I think I've covered it. I think you've heard most of what your questions are. Or is there anything else that you'd like to ask that's not here based on what you've heard so far? I think they've covered, yeah. Melanie? Same thing. I feel like, is Melanie here? Okay, well, we won't worry about Melanie. She's not here. You have to... Well, that's a good reason not to be here. Yeah. Not today. It's not a good way. Yes, sir.
You just said it, but it's Sam Armin Dunn that I worked with 10 plus years ago in this similar environment. They had a large lot that the building was going through distress. It had to be restabilized, so there was no money for anybody. And they worked with us on the land. It's to set aside money and all the other things. They worked with us. And John and I both waited 9 months for a commission check. Deals were done. His client funded all of the TIs, and it was written up that if rents could be given back, if they couldn't, I was hung out in case it ended up with a different building. But when it got recapitalized, that owner came to both thought it was checks that day was, but it was being patient. It was understanding reality, not getting upset about it, and we both were rewarded at the end.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions? We got 15 minutes left, so think about your...
Be a long question.
So the consistency, y'all have mentioned being with us to advocate can for your clients, developing and maintaining a relationship, even getting up early. But there's some other specific habits you've developed from our industry that have worked for y'all in regards to staying, Howard.
I can talk about lessons that I learned from Andy Gertner. I told y'all Andy spent 4 hours with us and helped him put this plan together. So Andy really, as he said, Andy doesn't really have a plan. So we took Andy's knowledge and created a plan for T. Dallas Smith & Company. So one of those things that we have, we call an activity guide. Is that what we call it? It's activity something report. Activity something. Activity. Yeah, you did. You didn't give me the activity goals. It's called activity goals. So one of the activity goals, like Andy would say, he would go to, I'm making this up, like Chops every Tuesday and Thursday. He'd play tennis on Mondays and Wednesdays and go to the country club on Saturday. So he would do these activities, and these activities would create these results. So we just called it activity goals, and we start measuring those activity goals. So for me, LinkedIn is a great resource, has been a great resource for me. Two of my biggest clients I got from LinkedIn. I used LinkedIn once I realized what it was. The old school, I used to knock on doors like Richard Bowers. But once I realized what LinkedIn was the equivalent of knocking on doors, but I can do this at home in my pajamas, I started doing that. Exactly, from my mom's house. So once she got internet. But then, so it was a whole thing. But anyway, so literally I would, my goals would be maybe I had 100 LinkedIn people I was connected to. So next month, I want to be connected to 200 people. And you start kind of vetting these people, and I would do this on a regular basis. I'm connected to over 13,000 people now. These activity goals, I got all this stuff from Andy. I tipped the valet at the Ritz-Carlton very nicely. Again, I got this from Andy. If you're driving a hoopty, which Leonte used to drive a hoopty, we would tip the guy $20. The guys with the cap, they would move the Bentley out of the way and put his hoopty, because the guy knew he was going to get $20. And here's the lesson in that.
What's a hoopty?
I'm sorry, it's black vernacular. It means a horrible freaking car, something dented up, something you don't want to be driving. Yes, this was my cultural moment here. Well, it's not O'Neal. That's how we get shit done, man. Okay, I'm sorry. And how many curse words? Don't punish me for that on my review. But anyway, I was like, Andy, well, why would you tip the valet guy so much? He said, Dallas, the valet is not for the money is not for the valet. It's advertisement. When you get your car before everybody else, everybody's going, who the hell was that guy? Very true statement. So we've reduced all the Andyisms to what we call activity goals, and that's served us extremely well. Deidre, who's back there in the back, who's now with CREB. We did activity goals, right? Yeah. So, Andy, thank you. Does that help?
Never doubted that.
I know you. It's all in your head. Yes, sir.
What were some of the most memorable mistakes in your
Phil.
We don't need to help.
And a few more beers.
I just came from a lunch meeting where Dan Cathy was speaking before this thing, and he made a comment about Bernie Marcus Bernie Marcus was one of the co-founders of Home Depot, and Bernie, I'd never heard this story before. Bernie used to start his Monday morning leadership meetings talking about the mistakes that Bernie made last week, and it created this safe environment where everyone on the leadership team acknowledged that, we're all making mistakes. No one's got the market cornered on perfection, right? And so he created this kind of vulnerability there to say, and starting with himself, which I thought was just, but I haven't made a mistake.
I've often said that if I'd have paid
Turn his mic on.
much attention to my marriage as I spent on business, I'd still be married and I'd have a lot more money. That's still old person. Just to show you I learned my lesson, I got some internal award at Cushman & Wakefield at a conference in Denver. And
This is last Thursday.
I was told I was going to get this award and I was going to try to get back for it. And Delta couldn't get me back. And I looked into chartering a jet. I was in the Caribbean to fly to Denver. And it was, something really ridiculous. And I said to myself, because my wife put this trip together, my second wife, I wasn't going to make the mistake again. I gave him a videotape instead of being there.
Smart man.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great question, though, and I think probably everyone this we're probably tough critics on ourselves, but trying to pause long enough to take inventory of what would I have done differently in that meeting, or what would I have done differently in the prep or the follow up or whatever. And I try to do that a lot because I just think I make a shit ton of mistakes. So I talk to myself in the car for hours. But I do think I think it's a critical part of what you need to be doing on a regular basis to always get better.
Stay green enough to grow. Next question. Chris.
Aaron Keel. Thank you for your remarks. What do you do to balance your life? So the work-life balance, the balance component of that.
What is that? Balance.
What is
Yeah, what's up? Explain this.
Please.
Caveman theory.
Tell us more.
too many of these books?
I got nothing. Yeah, next question, please.
Great question.
Vasti.
Great question.
That there's a not necessarily balance. Sometimes it's a seesaw. Something gets more attention than others. And you have to make the attention on time. And sometimes your business thinks you.
Actually, that to me, that is the answer. There's I saw the CEO speak once, who was a guy named Bill Johnson, who ran H.J. Heinz, and his father was a coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. And he's speaking to this group about this size and says, "You want to know the meaning of life or the balance of life?" And everyone's like, "Yes, God, I can't figure this out." And he's like, "Sometimes family wins, sometimes work wins." And I thought, that's it. That's ours. But as I was driving home, I'm like, well, that's actually, yeah. I mean, sometimes you're right. Sometimes it's tough to. Yeah.
But it does go back to, I think we talked about it. I mean, that's the blessing of this business, right? I mean, we all know there's tons of negatives. I mean, it's a tough business. You know, some of the best deals I ever thought I brokered didn't get done because I don't make the decision. I don't make the decision on that side or that side. You know, and so it's a tough business. But again, the thing that I love about it is it does allow the flexibility. I feel extremely sorry for parents of the friends of mine that when my children were growing up, they couldn't coach. Like I coached every event my child played. I got to go to ball games. I got to be on the board of regents because I had the flexibility in 24 hours to come home and work past midnight on my own to catch up with what I missed. But this business allows you the flexibility, and some jobs simply do not. And it ranks up there, one of the top 1 or 2 reasons why I do love and why I continue to stay in the business, because you then get to prioritize what's important to you. And if it's important to you, you got the time to do it.
Okay. Yep. Kurt. I'd like to hear from each of you to give us one word or a simple phrase of what defines who you are. What defines you are?
Wow.
Right? But yes.
Yeah. This is
Kurt, we heard I don't think we got enough time for this. I think we're going to get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
one word. Simply for me, one word would be faith. Faith.
Kind.
Kind. Passionate would be for me, I think.
Yeah, purposeful.
Yeah, good word. Good one, sir. Flawless.
Honestly, I'm the fight. He did instantly.
They say a lot of things can expand on it, but one thing you said a few minutes ago, I thought was really strong that we need to hear in the room. So many of us in the room are landlord agents or tenant rep guys, and so when the winds are shifting, they think, okay, well, this is our opportunity to siege and come back, and we did great concession package. They really drill down on the landlord, and there's a lot of, I wouldn't call it grandstanding, but I think one of the challenges of any broker to be effective is to manage their client's expectation. Absolutely. And we have a tendency to paint ourselves into a corner sometimes, and a lot of that can be handled on the front end. So we're getting ready to turn a page here where there's going to be a lot of headwind. There's going to be a lot of, this debt call I've been hearing about, and it's a bloodbath. And I just think it's important for those brokers that are, and maybe I'm a little bit dialed in because I do a little bit of landlord rep work. I kind of work on all both sides of it more. But you exude, Sam, and I think people would agree. When I look at you, you kind of exude this attitude of win-win, right?
Absolutely.
And so we need to think in terms of win-win, because if we come in, with our cape on for our tenant, thinking, okay, hey, I could go drive, seal a really bush envelope on free rent and TI. You better qualify which of those levers is the one that's most important, the material, and then not try to delve into everyone. I'm going to knock on the escalations, raise the free rent, go into DI, shorten the term. You know, there's X amount in a pot, and it's our job to qualify which of the columns are the most material, and give your landlord compadre who is trying to make the deal with you, give him some wins in the columns that ultimately aren't that material to your client.
Well, Griff, I appreciate that's why I mentioned earlier about the collegial nature of our business. I mean, when I do deals with brokers in other cities, especially the assassins in New York, I mean, they just are amazed that we have the relationships we have with landlord people. They're amazed because they're completely siloed and have no it's battle back. That's ridiculous. Who wins there? Does your client win there? I mean, if you don't have the relationship with the landlord guys to know what's important to them, then you manage client. You made the comment, Jennifer. Anybody's ever worked with me have heard that from me a million times. Managing your client's expectation is the most important thing that we do, because if you set an unfair expectation to your client, you're going to have an unhappy client at the end of the deal, and you're not going to get rehired. And trust me, keeping business is a hell of a lot easier than getting new business. And so from the standpoint of, especially today, if you think you're going to go in with a scorched earth, right? You think you're going to, because the pendulum is swung. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't understand the position the landlord's at, what good is it negotiating provisions that they're not going to be able to satisfy? Yeah. What good is that going to be? So you're going to get 6 years of free rent on a 4-year deal? What the hell's that going to do? That's not going to work. So you've got to be able to have the relationship and understand what's important to them, and then you've got to manage what's important to you. And like you said, if it's unimportant to your client, but it's a win for them, then absolutely you got to go down that path, because that's going to help you get a deal that's going to be better for your client. So understanding that is very important.
Hey, I just want to end on this. We literally have less than 60 seconds left. I've known Sam for a minute, and he never wears socks. Today he has on socks. And Sam, I wore these damn shoes without socks to honor you, my friend.
What?
And damn it, you wore socks today.
I learned that from the guy down there.
No socks down here.
Was that because you couldn't find them? I mean, no. Andy, no, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for this panel. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. We love y'all.
I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Thank y'all.